It's Bet Park Saturday, live from the Sportsbook here at Parks Casino in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Jeff Skaversky. We are live on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. I'm alongside my producer, Andrew Frazier. We're taking you from 12 to 2 today here from Bensalem on a jam-packed show. We're going to preview Eagles 49ers wildcard game tomorrow at 4:30. Can you wait for that? Can the Eagles make yet another Super Bowl run? We're going to talk to ESPN Sal Paolantonio. Great insight. We're going to go inside the numbers with Sal. Can Jalen Hurts in this offense flip the switch? And he has a Hall of Famer on this team, not in the locker room, but in the front office. Howie Roseman. He says he is going to vote for Howie Roseman and do everything he can to put Howie Roseman in the Hall of Fame. Do you agree with that sentiment? Howie Roseman, a Hall of Fame GM. We're going to talk to Sal Paolantonio coming up in a few minutes. Also, Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He will join the show as well to talk Eagles, Sixers, and the Phillies. Are you satisfied with the moves the Phillies have made or have not made at this point? We'll talk to Marcus about that. Plus, we're going to check in with our betting analyst, Brad Feinberg, as the Eagles are 6-point favorites against the 49ers tomorrow at 4:30. All right, let's get into it. Eagles, 49ers tomorrow at 4:30. Look, this Eagles football team is built to win. I don't care what happened in the regular season. I don't care that the offense struggled and it was brutal to watch at times. This football team and Jalen Hurts is built to win. And as much as everybody complained about this team, and look, there is a lot to complain about this season because you look at this offense, highest paid offense in all of football, they should produce more. And this is certainly not up to the standards of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and, of course, the owner, Jeffrey Lurie. But here they are, and none of it matters. And as much as everybody complained about this offense and the fan base has complained, there was a flip that was switched this week. I just sensed it from the fan base. Nobody was critical of this team this week, in my opinion. There was a quiet confidence that this football team is going to do what they're supposed to do, and that is finish the job, get to the Super Bowl, and win the Super Bowl. I didn't hear a lot of people critiquing this team this year, and especially this matchup. I just feel that there is a quiet confidence, and you saw it with the tickets, right? I mean, the tickets are not overly pricey for this game. I think there's plenty of tickets available. That this tells me that Eagles fans are confident that not only are they going to beat the 49ers, whether it's a blowout, whether it's an ugly win, that they're going to win this game and they are going to make a deep run. I talked to Jordan Mailata, the Eagles left tackle, this week, and he told me, look, it is do or die. We're going to get this right on offense. We have to. We have no choice. It is win or go home. And Mailata, he feels that he is re-energized, and he feels that he is at a point that having that week off really helped him. And he kind of joked he can't speak for everyone else on the offensive line, but they're going to get Lane Johnson back. I know he's questionable with the foot injury. He's been out for about 2 months, but I think he's going to play, and that is going to be a big boost to the offensive line. And Mailata just feels great about this team, that they're going to flip that switch. Jalen Hurts and the offense are going to find a way. And I truly do believe it doesn't matter how this team looks. It really doesn't, as long as they get the job done, which has really been Jalen Hurts' mindset the whole way here. And when you look at the big picture, does the NFC really scare you? Doesn't scare me. It really doesn't. I'm not scared of the 49ers. I'm not scared of the Bears. I'm not scared of the Packers. I'm not scared of the Seahawks. Are you? Are you really scared of anyone else out there? And I don't think a lot of people are talking about the Eagles being this dangerous team, but they should be a team that everyone's talking about because they are built for this. They have the pedigree, they have the players, they have the experience, they have the coach, and they have the quarterback. Yes, Jalen Hurts hasn't been great this season, but he's been very good. And where he's been great is this time of the year, in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts' biggest moments, he steps up to the occasion, rises to the occasion. Super Bowl MVP. Let's take a look at Jalen Hurts in the playoffs, just how good he has been. Super Bowl MVP last year. Played like a Super Bowl MVP when they lost the Super Bowl in 2022. Look at this, 6-3 in 9 playoff games, over 1,800 passing yards, 10 touchdowns in the air, 10 touchdowns on the ground, The only quarterback in NFL history with at least 10 rushing touchdowns and 10 touchdown passes in the postseason, Hurts on Sunday against the 49ers can join Pro Football Hall of Famer Joe Montana, as well as Joe Flacco, and future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers as the only players in NFL history with a passer rating of 90 or higher in 7 consecutive playoff games. I don't care what you say about Jalen Hurts. This guy rises to the occasion when the lights are the brightest, and I believe he will do it again this time of the year. And that starts with the 49ers on Sunday at 4:30 at Lincoln Financial Field. And Hurts was asked this week just about that, coming up big in the biggest moments, and he gave a cold-blooded response why he's had big playoff games as the Eagles eye another Super Bowl run. He says some things are just in you, and I love that mentality. It was so cold-blooded, I can't do it justice. So we're going to hear from that from Hurts, and this team, look, has a legit shot of winning back-to-back Super Bowls. And do you know how hard that is? The Eagles can become only the 10th team in NFL history to win back-to-back Super Bowls. It is hard, very hard, but here's Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni on trying to do it again starting Sunday against the 49ers.
You're always judged in this league by your last game. You're always judged in this league by what you've done, here. And it's, I think when I studied a lot of great teams in the past and great coaches in the past, and what was the secret to sustained success, it always came back down to, there's a lot of things that coaches talk to me about, but it always came down to 2 things: staying in the moment, not looking too far ahead, like, hey, how are we going to do this thing again? There's a lot of work that goes into, achieving the ultimate goal, and there's a lot of steps and there's a lot of process, and you got to go through those things. And then on the other end of the spectrum was like, hey, resting on your laurels. Well, we'll get back there because we done it. Nobody cares in this league, right? You have to put the work in every single day to help yourself continue to get better, to put yourself in position to win each week and win in the playoffs. So we just tried to stay where our feet were there. I know this, like, for these guys that I coach, I know for myself, it's like you play a game of pickup basketball. You don't and win the game. You don't take your shoes off and say, I'm content. I mean, we were here in this spot because you want to run it back and you want to play and compete again. It's part of the reason why you're here.
Some things are in you. Every year is different, but it's always the same goal. And if you don't have that mentality, then you're not in the right place ultimately. And so I know that's something that he's adamant on, and I feel very strongly about that as well. It's just coming in, treating every year as his own year, but also knowing exactly what we're playing for, and that's the collective of winning and putting ourselves in positions to play for championships.
If I'm playing sorry with my kids and I win, I want to play again and go again. So I don't let them win that often, but sometimes I do. But yeah, I think that's just the competitive nature of, and why there's a reason that the people are in this building that are in this building, because they have that hunger.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni's so hungry. He's beating up his kids and sorry in board games at home. Come on, Nick. Look, this team, they are hungry, and you hear them this week. I think they are rested, having that week off, not playing that finale, most of the starters. I think that was a brilliant move by Nick Sirianni. I know they didn't get the 2 seed, and some people wanted to see the Packers. I don't think it matters. Play who you play, and that's it. I think rest in a 17-game season is more important than anything else. But Jalen Hurts is hungry. He's battle-tested. He still has that picture of him losing the Super Bowl in 2022 as his screensaver on his iPhone. Do you need to hear anything else about Jalen Hurts? He is a ice-cold killer on the field. All he cares about is winning, and the losses drive him. I mean, think about that message. He doesn't have the picture of him winning the Super Bowl and hoisting the Lombardi Trophy on his iPhone. He has the picture of him walking off the field, losing to Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the Chiefs in 2022. I mean, come on. And he's played in the biggest games in college, the biggest games in the NFL. He has that experience. And say what you want about the not top 5 quarterback nonsense. That's all baloney to me. None of it matters. None of it matters. Jalen Hurts, he's a winner. And I believe he has it in him to find a way, even when things aren't going right, even when there's a mistake, to get the job done. And this 49ers team, they are banged up. they are beat up coming in here, cross country, that Jalen Hurts can get this done. And you want to talk about all the other quarterbacks in the league. If you talk about the quarterbacks still left in the playoffs in the NFC, how many other guys would you rather have than Jalen Hurts? Would you rather have Caleb Williams? No. I think the only other guy I'd rather have would be Matthew Stafford. I'd rather have Hurts than Brock Purdy. I'd rather have him than Jordan Love. That's just my opinion. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts, he is a winner. And when I hear other coaches talk about Hurts around the league, they have nothing but amazing things to say about him. 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh said this week that you can't phase him. You can't phase the guy, right? And he's a, quote, damn good football player. He witnessed it firsthand when he was the Jets coach, and they had the inter-squad practices in training camp before playing in the preseason. But here's my thing about Hurts. He doesn't care how it looks. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what anybody thinks, as long as they get the win. And maybe that's been an issue inside the locker room with A.J. Brown. I'm speculating here, but Jalen Hurts does not care. He just wants to see this team win, and he doesn't get rattled. He has that experience. He has that leadership. And if they win another Super Bowl and it's ugly and you're dragged through the mud watching this football team play in the playoffs, are you really going to care when you're at that parade on Broad Street again? No, of course not. The Eagles don't care. All that matters is that they win, and this team sounds locked in to get the job done after resting the starters. Here's the Eagles. Listen to this.
It depends on what perspective you look at it, half empty or half full. And I think being able to evolve and change as much as we have and still find ways to win and ways gives you a maybe gives off this perspective of, well, what are they going to do? Who are they? And so I do definitely think that is a way that you can look at it. Also, at the end of the day, we're not going to be judged off of how it got done. We're going to be judged off of if we did it or not. And so my focus is on doing it.
Game by game, right? You're just doing whatever you need to do to win the game. So we will do anything and everything we have to put our players in a position to give them a chance to execute and win the game.
I truly believe we have busted our ass to be, the best version that we are right now, but we got to keep getting better. Like there's no, that's this league. You got to continue to grind. You got to continue to try to get better, and I think we've done that, and we'll continue to work like crazy, to get better. That's the mindset our team has. That's the mindset our players have. That's the mindset our coaches have.
I think it's great. I think when you look at our whole team, we've got a lot of experience in different spots, which is tremendous. And so going forward, it's gonna pay dividends for us for sure. And his leadership in those moments and ability to, I've been here, I've done that, is really a big lift for us on offense, that he can handle anything that's going on out there in the moment.
We're going to continue to bust our ass to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. That's what we've been doing from week 1 of training camp back to OTAs. That's what we'll continue to do. And so we'll do it as coaches. We're up there working right now to put together the best plans we can. Players will come in with a mindset of, getting a little bit better each day, focusing on just this game, not anything else. But the San Francisco 49ers, and yeah, the best way I know how to get ourselves ready to win a football game is by what you do throughout the week with your preparation. As coaches, as players, through your practices, through your walkthroughs, to your meetings. It's all that work. You win games Monday through Saturday, and then by going and executing on Sunday and coaching well on Sunday.
There you have it. We're going to get to ESPN Sal Paolantonio in a second. My conversation with the Eagles and NFL national correspondent in a moment. But look, I trust Nick Sirianni. I trust this football team. They have been there. They have done that. This team is young. They don't have aging vets all over the place. This team has valuable experience. Even look at their young guys on defense. Think about it. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean named all pros today. I mean, how rare is that? These guys are in their second year. These aren't older vets that have been in the league for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, these are young cornerstone cornerbacks, and this defense is built. They are built to win a championship and a Super Bowl. I mean, you talk about the Eagles' experience. And you just have to realize just how special of a time this is. Let's take a look at this. Just how great this Eagles football team has been. The experience, including the playoffs, the Eagles have the highest winning percentage in the NFL since 2022. They're one of just 2 NFL teams with 5 consecutive postseason berths, and the Eagles have won 5 consecutive home playoff games, including 31-7 win over the 49ers in the 2022 NFC Championship game. You look at these numbers, you look at just how dominant the Eagles have been in the NFL. This is a very, very special time, and they are just 4 wins away from hoisting another Lombardi trophy. It could start with the 49ers and end in San Francisco with a W and another Super Bowl and another parade down Broad Street. One of my favorite stories as the Eagles are about to kick off the playoffs is, did you hear the story about Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio and his meatballs? This is a great story. Tim McManus from ESPN did the story this week that Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio has introduced a weekly tradition. He's giving out homemade meatballs in a brown paper bag to the best defensive player of the week in his mind. If you have the video, Andrew, let's play this video here of Vic Fangio making meatballs at home, and he actually makes homemade meatballs. I think jokingly he was kind of saying that he doesn't even let his girlfriend know the recipe because the recipe's been passed down from his grandparents when they came over from Italy, and then his mom gave him the recipe growing up in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania area. But he does not let the cat out of the bag. He will not tell anyone the recipe. Former players have called him for the recipe. He won't do it, but he actually hands homemade meatballs to Eagles defensive players and their plays when they're players of the week. I absolutely love this story. Vic Fangio, a brilliant defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers head coach, he even talked about this week. He's tried to hire Vic Fangio 2 or 3 times to bring him to San Francisco before he became the Eagles defensive coordinator, and he just could not get it done. But Vic Fangio making meatballs at home. He won't give up the recipe. I wonder what's in there. I wonder how good those are. I bet you if they're anywhere near as good of a defensive play caller as he is, as they are meatballs, they will be some fantastic meatballs. All right, let's get to our key interview this week with ESPN Sal Paolantonio. Of course, Sal Pal does a great job for ESPN, national NFL correspondent. He's been covering the NFL for ESPN for over 30 years, since the 1990s. He's covered 30 Super Bowls, covered the Eagles and Tom Brady's runs against the Eagles. Sal Pal does a great job. He's going to be at the Eagles 49ers game tomorrow, and he has some great insight here. Here's my conversation we taped a few hours ago this morning with ESPN Sal Paolantonio. ESPN Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing great, Jeff. It's wild card weekend. Number 33 for me. 33 years covering the league. Crazy.
Unbelievable run. When you look at this Eagles defense, Sal, I don't think anyone going into the season with all the changes they had expected this, the way they're playing going into the playoffs. And when you look at this defense in particular, you have to wonder, are they playing for a Lombardi trophy or are they playing for a bag of meatballs? You see the story this week on ESPN.com?
Well, you can play for both, right?
Yeah, a bag of meatballs.
Yeah, that was a story by Tim McManus. Vic Fangio gives out meatballs and spaghetti to the player of the week. It's a big deal because it's his own recipe. But you can play for both. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell on Saturday were named All-Pro, which is pretty unique to have 2 cornerbacks, a starting outside corner and a starting slot corner, to be both All-Pro, drafted in the same year, back-to-back by Howie Roseman. Just unbelievable. I am floored by this. I know I've never seen this before. 2 guys drafted the same year to be All-Pro in the same secondary. And you look at the numbers, they're phenomenal. The Eagles have limited opponents to the lowest completion percentage, 56.8% in the league. That's the best figure for an Eagles team since 2008. And they gave up a league low 14 touchdown passes. And as for Quinyon Mitchell, his numbers are just off the charts great. He has allowed a completion percentage league low 42%. So this guy's the ultimate shutdown corner. and that makes the Eagles' pass defense the best in the National Football League. I think this is the strength of the Eagles going into this game and going into the playoffs. I actually think, Jeff, that this defense is better than the one that won the Super Bowl last year.
Is that hard to comprehend? Because, like I said, when you think about all the changes and Milton Williams and all the guys that left this team, including Brandon Graham originally, that this defense would be the strong suit. You would have thought the offense, the highest paid offense in the National Football League, would be the strong suit here. Does this surprise you that this defense has been this good?
It doesn't, because you have Pro Bowlers at all three levels. Defensive tackle, defensive line, linebacker with Zach Bond, who I think got snubbed by the All-Pro selections. I think Zach Bond was an All-Pro. Let me give you this. He was the only NFL player, Zach Bond, to post 120-plus tackles, 3.5+ sacks, and 3+ takeaways this season. Only linebacker in the NFL. Excuse me, only player in the NFL. So we're talking about monster production from Zach Bond. And you have Vic Fangio. Obviously, he is a tremendous defensive coordinator, 40 years of experience, and you've added players. Yes, you lost Milton Williams, but you added Jalen Phillips, a huge addition. And you have experience now, year 2 in this system. So I am not surprised that they're better than they were last year.
How do you think this matchup will play out against the 49ers? I mean, the 49ers, Brock Purdy's been a very good quarterback, but this offense for the 49ers has not been great.
Right. So there's an old saying in the NFL, your strengths get you into the playoffs. Your weaknesses get you knocked out of the playoffs. And for right now, the Eagles' weaknesses are 2 things, actually 3, but we'll start with the number 1. They are terrible on first down. They were 26th in the league in production efficiency on first down. That's bottom 5. They had 50 53 and outs. That's the most of the 14 playoff teams. That's tied for second most in the league with, wait for it, the Cleveland Browns, Jeff. The Cleveland Browns had 50, and they started 2 rookie quarterbacks. So they must be better on first down so they don't get behind the sticks on third down. They don't have a good third down offense. They just don't. That showed in Buffalo when they did not complete a pass in the second half. Number 2, penalties and penalty yards. They had 1,073 penalty yards this season, most of the 14 teams that qualified for the playoffs. Those are the 2 major weaknesses. And then the third one is Jake Elliott, the kicker. He's got to be much more consistent in the playoffs if the Eagles are going to win some of these tight games. I don't think that will matter in this game, the field goal kicking. But what will matter is for them to be much more productive offensively on first down and don't be sloppy with the penalties, because that could kill them.
Well, it seems that in the last, handful of games of the season, they have cut down on the penalties. And we saw this with Jake Elliott.
Oh, not really. They had 9 penalties. They led the league in week 18 with 9 penalties.
Okay, I'm mistaken then. Okay.
Well, just on the contrary.
Okay. So do you think that week off, a lot of guys have talked about it. I talked to Jordan Mailata this week, and he was saying to me that they feel refreshed. They feel better. And look, he only can speak for himself, and he believes this offense will turn things around. Do you have the belief that this Eagles team can just flip the switch and all of a sudden light it up in the playoffs? We've seen it before from Jalen Hurts. He rises to the occasion. Do you believe they can flip that switch?
Well, first of all, I agree with Nick Sirianni's decision to rest the players in week 18. The number one thing that I've heard in my career in the last 5 years, Jeff, from NFL players is they hate the 17-game schedule. It's brutal. Anytime you can get a week off, a game off, it's one car wreck you don't have to go through. And they would rather do that, have a week off, if it's not going to hurt the team. And Sirianni is very, very good about consulting the leaders on the team. He has a 12-player council, and I'm sure that he made that decision in consultation with those players, those leaders on the team. He didn't do it by himself. Sirianni's very good around the players. He listens to his players. I think it was a smart thing. And by the way, I'd rather play the Niners right now than the Packers, 100%. No question about it. So they did the right thing.
Why is that? Because a lot of people
Niners
wanted the
they have
Packers.
so many injuries. They have a lot of injuries. Niners scored 3 points against Seattle last week. Struggled to do so. And Seattle's defense, Jeff, is the same as the Eagles pretty much. They rush 4, drop 7. They have good defensive tackles. They have good players at all levels. So I agree with Nick Sirianni's decision. Can they flip the switch? So the last time we saw them, the first team offense on the field was the second half in Buffalo at Highmark Stadium.
Yeah, brutal.
They couldn't complete a pass. And Nick Sirianni said to me in the post-game press conference at the stadium, in the bowels of the stadium, he said he regretted not stepping in the second half and being more involved in the play calling. And then I followed up with a question. ProFootballTalk.com wrote about this. I followed up with a question, what would that look like? Would you do it real time, or would you wait until the series is over on the sideline? And he said he would wait till the series is over on the sideline. So I am very interested to see, and this is a crucial point in this game. This is a crucial, critical aspect of this game. If the offense struggles again, goes into a slumber, and is turgid and can't get out of its own way, will Nick Sirianni step in with Kevin Patullo and Jalen Hurts on the sideline and be more involved in the play calling like he said he regretted not doing in Buffalo? This is an important point in this game. Very, very important. Because the last time we saw them on offense, the first team, they couldn't complete a pass. So if you're talking about flipping a switch, turning the lights on, that's all well and good. You had a different offensive coordinator last year in Kellen Moore. This is the critical aspect of this game. The defense is going to be fine. I don't think the Niners are going to score very many points. I'd be shocked if the Niners scored more than 1 touchdown in this game. But the Eagles must function better offensively.
Yeah, and so I want to go into that. I mean, Jalen Hurts has kept things very, very close to the vest since he's been a Philadelphia Eagle, just in his nature. But I've heard him 5 or 6, 7 times this year talk about publicly that it has been a challenge, not necessarily with Kevin Patullo, but just the constant change in offensive coordinator, the constant change in play calling, and having that 6th play caller in 6 years with the Eagles alone, not even talking about college. Do you think in a way his head is spinning? Do you think in a way that it is a big challenge? It is causing an issue, not necessarily it's Kevin Patullo, but just the constant change, trying to keep up with everything that he has to manage when he takes that field?
It's an old story, Jeff. He's had 17 games. He's had 5 months to figure this out.
But he talked about it this week again. Like, and that's why I wonder that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I was talking. I'm sorry.
So he said it again this week. He brought that up again, the challenge of the different offensive coordinator.
Right, and I'm suggesting to you that that's an old excuse for him. To me, you know, he's had the entire season, training camp and the offseason to work with Kevin Patullo. I think there are problems with the way Kevin Patullo calls offense, but I think the bottom line is you have to look at the specific losses in the second half of the season and what has gone wrong. Monday Night Football, that was all on Jalen Hurts. That wasn't Kevin Patullo. He turned the ball over, especially at the end. He had Dallas Goedert wide open on first down. And he went to Johan Dotson. The ball was picked off and the game was over. Second half against Dallas, that's a little of both of them. I think the bottom line is you have to look at each individual thing. You look at Buffalo, second half of Buffalo, the offensive line was getting blown off the ball. Jalen Hurts didn't have time to throw. Saquon Barkley had no place to go. So you have to look at individual things. I don't blame Jalen Hurts. I don't blame Kevin Patullo. I don't blame the offensive line. There have been some injuries. I think in totality, the big picture is, 1, this team repeated as division champions. 2, they are very good when their back's against the wall. They know how to respond. And number three, this defense, in my view, having studied it on the NFL matchup show this year, is the best defense in the NFL, and it's better than it was last year. So from a big picture standpoint, this team, I think, is well equipped to not only beat the Niners, but to make a run in these playoffs if they can be more productive on first down. Don't get off the field as much as they have. 3-and-outs will kill this team in this game.
Yeah, and playing behind the sticks, obviously, to your point, has been a big issue for this team, along with everything else that you have laid out. When you look at the NFC, the entire picture, is there anyone out there that scares you for the Eagles? Because I don't see it, right? Like, could they get beat by anybody? Could they lose this game to the Niners? Of course they could, but there's no one out there that necessarily scares me in the NFC.
I don't think they'll lose to the Niners. And I actually think the Packers will beat the Bears, and the Rams will boat race the Carolina Panthers this time around. So I think the Eagles have a very good chance of having a home playoff game in the divisional round. Scares, I don't think there's any team that scares. I think the matchup against Seattle in Seattle will be very difficult. I think that's a game where they will not be favored. They'll probably be a 3-point underdog or more. But I get ahead of myself because right now I'm really anxious to see, Jeff, how this offense functions against a depleted San Francisco 49ers defense. And that's the reason why I say the Niners are a better matchup than the Packers right now, because the Packers secondary under defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley is really well coached. They're locked down. And even without Micah Parsons, the Packers defense is better than the Niners defense. The Eagles would struggle against the Packers defense. They have speed. They're well coached. They get after the quarterback. The Niners are depleted. Can the Eagles offense function at a normal level? And then that to me is the critical aspect of this game, because I know the defense will show up big time.
Yeah, you talk about showing up. Jalen Hurts has showed up in those big moments year after year. We saw it in college. We've seen it in, obviously, with the Eagles going to those 2 Super Bowls with him. Why do you think he's been able to turn it on and take it to the next level when the lights shine the brightest?
Well, I think you have to look individually at which games we're talking about. Last year, he was totally brilliant and locked in. There were a lot of things going in his favor. The offensive line at that point last year was the best in the National Football League, injury-free. So they've had injuries. Landon Dickerson was resting yesterday. Lane Johnson's trying to work his way back. Lane Johnson's missed 7 weeks with that Liz Frank injury in his foot. The anticipation is that Lane Johnson will play on Sunday. He's listed as questionable, but if I can't see him missing this game, and the way our friend John Clark has showed those videos of Lane Johnson in practice, he looks pretty strong, tell you the truth. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't play and doesn't play well. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer and he wants to be out there. So Jalen Hurts has functioned well just with the Philadelphia Eagles in last year's run because of the O-line, because they could run the ball. That took a lot of pressure off him. He didn't have to perform at a high level in the passing game. And Kellen Moore was a superior offensive coordinator, much more so than Kevin Patullo. To your point about the change, it took a while for Jalen Hurts to get acclimated to Kevin Patullo and the play calling. But I think that excuse is over. He's had weeks and weeks to work behind the scenes with Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Jeff Stoutland, the passing game coordinator, and get this thing fixed. You can't just say, well, 6 years of offensive coordinator changes is affecting him now in the wild card game, 17 weeks after Kevin Patullo was installed. That ship has sailed. I'm surprised he brought that up, actually. I think right now he has to focus on, okay, what are we going to do? And I think they should throw the ball against the Niners, because the Niners are so depleted on defense. They had so much success, Jeff, the Eagles, if you look on film, in the last 4 weeks of the season with a spread no huddle offense, empty backfield, and just firing off the ball, and Jalen Hurts able to pick on one-on-ones in the passing game. I hope they do that against the Niners. We had a piece in the NFL matchup show this week where Greg Cosell, my colleague, showed that the Seattle Seahawks did a great job of running on the edges against the Niners defense. And then he showed a pin pull concept that the Eagles use. Jeff Stoutland has set it up perfectly, where Saquon Barkley runs off the edge on a pin pull concept that the Eagles have run to perfection over the years that will really do damage against the Niners with their depleted linebacker core. So I think the Eagles can, if they are in sync offensively against a depleted Niners defense, I think they can do well, but they really need to have their head in the game.
You know, when you talk about the fan aspect, I mean, it seems like there's been a quiet confidence this week. I mean, it felt like the whole season Eagles fans are complaining about the offense. And then this week, it just feels like, oh, we're going to beat the Niners. They're going to turn it on and beat the Niners. You've been in this town, Sal, for a very, very long time. This Philadelphia fan base, do you sense that quiet confidence this week going into this Niners game?
Well, it's interesting. The line went from the Eagles favored by 3.5 to the Eagles favored by 6. And you know what that means. That means a whole lot of money has gone towards the Eagles, betting on the Eagles. And you know where that money has come from. It's come from Philadelphia. That is your best gauge, best measure of confidence in the team, that the money is being bet on the Birds. And that has driven the line up to 6. I have confidence in the team, too, because, you know, if you go back to the Seattle game, how did the Niners get limited to 3 points? Well, up the middle, the Seattle Seahawks pass rush on the Niners center and 2 guards, they just obliterated them. And where's the Eagles' strength? It's with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, right up the middle. And I think the Eagles can do the same thing to the Niners that Seattle did, both in offense, running off the edge, and defense, pass rush up the middle.
Last thing for you, when you look at this team overall, you have covered 3 decades of Super Bowls. What is the mental and physical toll for a team coming off a Super Bowl win, the parade, everything else, then going into the next season and making a repeat attempt? There's only been 10 repeat champions in Super Bowl history. What is the mental and physical toll you believe it takes to get the job done and repeat as champions?
That's a great question, Jeff, because there hasn't been a repeat Super Bowl champion in 20 years. It's so hard. You have turnover in free agency. You have a 17-game schedule, so it's brutal on these players' bodies. You got injuries. You got all the outside noise that is compounded over the years. It has been unbelievable how much these players have to deal with just in the media and fans and obligations to the team. So this is the crux of the issue and why teams have not repeated as Super Bowl champs. And what an accomplishment this is. I can't say enough about the coaching job done by Nick Sirianni.
He doesn't get enough credit. Like, he doesn't get enough credit.
Does not get enough credit. I was asked on a New York radio station on Friday, Jeff, what happens if Nick Sirianni gets fired? Will John Harbaugh be the next head coach of the Eagles? And I said, whoa, time out. I'm calling a TO here. Nick Sirianni is not going anywhere. They just re-signed him, and the guy just won the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, he has the best winning percentage on the road in the last 4 years, and the 3rd highest winning percentage in the Super Bowl era, behind Vince Lombardi. He's got his name on the trophy. John Madden, he's got his name on Madden Football. Both of them in the Hall of Fame. Nick Sirianni's 3rd behind those 2 dudes. So he's not going anywhere. Tremendous job by Nick Sirianni. And I get accused all the time of being, too rah-rah for the Birds. But you have to say that what Nick Sirianni has done is truly remarkable. And what Howie Roseman has done in the front office, late season trade for a guy like Jalen Phillips, who's a total difference maker.
It's been great.
And he's opened things up for Jalix Hunt, who Howie Roseman drafted. And on Saturday, the 2 guys that Howie Roseman drafted back to back, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in that order are in the Pro Bowl. I've just asked Elias Sports Bureau, and I don't have the number for you right off the top of my head. I haven't gotten it back, Jeff. I was hoping that I would have it, but I will email it to you later. When was the last time that two corners drafted back-to-back in the same draft went to the Pro Bowl? Went to the Pro Bowl in their second season on the same team. I've never seen it before. I mean, the Eagles have Bobby Taylor and Sheldon Brown, I believe, were in the same draft off the top of my head. I think I'll have to. I'm just waiting for Elias to come up with that, because that to me is to answer your question. How have the Eagles done it? Well, superior head coach, superior, and superior front office. To me, I'm one of the 12 enshrinement selectors for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've been there for 11 years now. It's one of the great jobs that I have. And Howie Roseman, to me, is a Hall of Famer. He won more Super Bowls than Bill Polian. He's in the Hall of Fame. He won more Super Bowls than Ron Wolf. He's in the Hall of Fame. To me, Howie Roseman is a future Hall of Famer, and I will do everything I can to get him in the Hall of Fame.
Wow. And it is crazy, because when you think about everything that went on years ago when Chip Kelly was here, there's a lot of GMs that would have been let go in that situation. But Jeffrey Lurie had Howie Roseman stay on, and here we are. And it's just remarkable that they're now in position to make another Super Bowl run.
Yeah, it really is. And if you think about it, Jeff, in this postseason, what are the two biggest storylines? And as a reporter, I always root for the best story. In the AFC, it's Buffalo, right? Buffalo kept out of a Super Bowl championship 4 times in the 90s by the NFC East, by Washington, New York, and Dallas. Then, with a wide right. We all know that story. It's part of their legacy. Josh Allen couldn't get past Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady couldn't get past Patrick Mahomes. Now they're all out of the way. If Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills get back to the Super Bowl, huge, great, feel-good story in the NFL. And I'm frankly rooting for that. I have a lot of friends in Buffalo. I've covered a lot of games in Buffalo. I like Josh Allen as a person and as a player. I like Sean McDermott as a coach and a person. I root for those guys. In the NFC, what's the biggest story? Well, people are talking about the Rams and Seattle. Come on. It's the Eagles going back-to-back, Jeff. First time in 20 years. Back-to-back NFC East champs. And so to me, that is the biggest story. And I'm glad to be part of it. I'm glad to have a little part of it. I'm glad to be on your show. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to do it during the season, but this is a great, great time to be on your program. I've always admired your work. You do a terrific job. Welcome back to Philly. And I hope to see you at the game on Sunday. I hope so.
All right. Sal Paolantonio, great insight. We appreciate the time. We'll see if the Eagles can get it done and move on to that second round divisional playoffs. Thanks, Sal. There you have it, ESPN, Sal Paolantonio. Great insight there, and I agree with Sal. The Eagles are really the cream of the crop in the NFC. I don't want to hear about the Seahawks. I'm not buying the Seahawks. When you look at the Seattle Seahawks, this team, okay, I think they've had an easy schedule. I think the Eagles can beat the Bears. I think they can beat the Packers. I think they can beat the Rams. Can the Eagles get beat by anybody here, including the 49ers, if they have a dud tomorrow? Of course. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think this Philadelphia Eagles team will indeed rise to the occasion as they have. And they had that Super Bowl run last year. They've played a lot of games. That rest to be re-energized going into the playoffs, I think it's going to come in handy. And the Eagles are, for the most part, healthy. They have 21 of their 22 starters that will play against the 49ers tomorrow in the wild card game. The only one is Andrew Makuba, so I do expect Lane Johnson to play and return from that foot injury after missing about 2 months here. He's been questionable all week and limited, but I think Lane Johnson's going to play, and that is a big boost to Jalen Hurts and this offense, to the passing game and the run game. All right, we're here at Parx Casino in Ben Salem on Bet Park Saturday, live from the Sportsbook. I'm your host, Jeff Skversky. We're taking you up to 2 o'clock with my producer, Andrew Frazier, today. Live sports betting is better on the Bet Parx app. You can get in the game with live betting. It makes watching the game that much more fun. Plus, Bet Parx has great holiday offers for new users. Get a $50 casino bonus on the new game, Lots of Puff. Plus, up to a $1,000 casino bonus back if you are down in your first 24 hours. So if you're down, you get up to 1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in your first 24 hours. Bet Park's the only app that I recommend to bet on when you're using your interest in sports gambling. Use the Bet Parx app, and there's classic games on there like blackjack, craps, roulette, and the hot online slots like Huff and More Puff and diving or Divine Fortunes, that is. Plus, the Bet Parx online sportsbook and casino gives you another shot to win double the spread on one select pro football game every weekend. Eagles, 49ers, Birds are 6-point favorites tomorrow on Sunday in the wild card round. Of course, you must be 21 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Michigan to gamble. BetParx.com has all the details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So as I said, the Eagles, big game tomorrow. Lots of drama potentially with the 49ers. When you think about all the drama they've had with the 49ers over the years, remember the Niners fans? They put the 49ers jersey on the Rocky statue before the NFC title game in 2022. That didn't go so well. The Birds blew them out to get to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. Let's not forget one of their players taking a shot at Big Dom when they were last year in 2023. And then the Eagles were blown out by the Niners. So some drama going into this game. There's some history with the 49ers, even though they play across the country. And let's get more on this game from our betting analyst, Brad Feinberg. Brad, how's it going today?
Great to see you, my friend. You watch, Jeff, what do you think of the college football games? I got to ask that real quick first.
Yeah, Brad. We are always watching Brad on Twitter and on various programs. Some great insight on the Eagles 49ers for tomorrow. So, Brad, the Eagles are 6-point favorites against the Niners. This line has been moving, has it not? This line looks like it's been moving. Can you tell us why that's the case?
Listen, Jeff, I got to be honest. This line opened 2.5. I bet the Eagles minus 2.5, and then again I bet the minus 3 because I thought this line should have been between 3.5 and 4. I think there's been an overreaction. I ended up betting the 49ers plus 7 for a bit, laying a little extra juice, giving myself a middle. If the Eagles win by 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, not impossible. I can hit it both ways. I think what we're seeing is, I think people are like, okay, Eagles defending Super Bowl champs. They seem to be the more healthy team right now. Trent Williams is banged up. Another guy, Pearsall, I think is very important to their team. I don't think he's going to play. We saw the 49ers struggle in that last game against Seattle. But I think, Jeff, there's been an overreaction. I think right now on the Bet Park site, we're looking at line is 6. I think that line is, sorry about the dogs barking, I think that line is a little bit too high, personally.
Your dog wants a bet. Your dog wants some action there.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the dogs. Take the 49ers, Jeff. The dogs are barking.
Why do you think there's been that overreaction, Brad? I mean, you're saying it opened at 2?
It opened at 2.5, went to 3 immediately, and then again, I laid that because I'm like, that line's too short. I go, this line should be 3.5 to 4, and Jeff, as you know, 3 is such a big number in the NFL. I mean, it's about 1 out of 7 games land on that. So it's such an important number, is getting it at 3. But I think that the exuberance and just taking the Eagles, I think part of it is, like, people know the 49ers defense, Jeff, is kind of overrated. It's not that great. But again, I think it has been an overreaction personally. And right now, with the line being 6, Jeff, I'm looking to San Francisco or pass, personally. I think the Eagles win the game. Let me make this clear. I think the Eagles win the game, but I just think that line's a little bit too high.
What about the over-under? It's 44.5. Where are you at with that over and under?
Jeff, this one's a much tougher one for me because part of me says, okay, I think this 49ers defense is absolutely awful. Awful. I think they're just like one of the worst teams in the league defensively. But then I watched the Eagles all year, except against the Raiders, they put up a good game. I don't know if they did that again. Maybe against the Giants, they had a good game. But all year, they've been telling you they're not good offensively. And and the Eagles defense has been magnificent. I can't play it, Jeff. I thought that's the right number because I just don't trust this Eagles offense enough to get on the over. And to bet the under, I just think the 49ers defense is just so not good. If there's ever a defense they should score on, Jeff, it's this one. I think it's the right number I'm passing.
You know, I talked to Jordan Mailata earlier this week, and he's like, we're going to turn it on. And I was like, why do you feel that way? He's like, well, we have no other choice. It's do or die. It's the playoffs. And there is that belief that, okay, they're just going to flip the switch because they've been so good in the playoffs and they have this team, the highest offensive payroll in all of the NFL, that they're just going to turn this on. And so from the gambling aspect, I mean, what is the strongest bet here when you're talking about this Philadelphia Eagles 49ers NFC wildcard game?
I'll tell you, Jeff, thank you for asking a couple things. One of my favorite things for home watching is when the NFL playoffs start. What do I love to do, Jeff? I love to bet running quarterbacks overs for rushing yards. Why? Just look at Patrick Mahomes the last 6 years. His rushing stats during the regular season versus the postseason. He would, Jeff, basically double what he was doing in the postseason. Josh Allen, same way. These guys, they run more in the postseason because you're not saving yourself from it. You know, usually a lot of times coaches say, you know what, we don't need you to run. We want you to be healthy for all 17 weeks. But now it's the playoffs. You got to get that first down. And you see a little opening, and you normally maybe just throw it away or whatever. No, now you're going to run. Jalen Hurts, Jeff, he's averaging about 30 yards a game this year. The over-under opened at 29.5. I bet over 29.5 and 30.5. It's now 31.5. And I bet over 6.5 rushing attempts as well. I think Jalen Hurts, Jeff, one of the biggest things, if I'm the Eagles guy, I'm saying to myself, what makes the Eagles special, Jeff, is when Jalen Hurts does run. You know, it's like Steph Curry. If he just stopped shooting threes, I could do other things. I don't need to show I could do. I don't need to shoot threes. Well, okay. If you don't want to do that, I don't think that's intelligent. To me, if Jalen Hurts, one of the things that makes him a really good player, Jeff, is the fact that he is a tough man. He's so physically strong. He can run for those big plays. I think if I'm the Eagles, that's part of the game I'm absolutely going to utilize in this 49ers game and hopefully throughout the playoff run.
You know, that's such a great point. And Hurts was asked about it this week. And he was asked about, you know, are we going to see you run more in the playoffs? We haven't seen you run a ton this year. Kind of what's going on? And that has kind of been the storyline and the questioning to Hurts for the last few weeks. Hurts and Patullo and Nick Sirianni have been getting a lot of those questions. And Hurts did say something. He dropped a little bit of a line in there and said, well, you know, I'm kind of running what Kevin Patullo calls. And so, you know, he's putting that on the offensive coordinator, which leads you to believe, okay, is he running less because it's on KP? Is he running less because he wants to stay out of harm's way? And we've gone back and forth in this city over the running quarterback, whether it's Donovan or Carson Wentz or Michael Vick. Now Jalen Hurts, and really the thing is, you know, for years when the guy's running too much, you're going, okay, he's going to get hurt and he could be injury prone. Exactly. Jalen Hurts has kept himself healthy, and he has been available, and he's been a great quarterback overall. So the question really becomes, when you make this great point about now that it's all on the line and it is do or die, he's going to take off. But we showed this earlier, when you look at Jalen Hurts' numbers in the playoffs, 10 rushing touchdowns, he's the only quarterback in NFL history with at least 10 rushing touchdowns and 10 touchdown passes in the postseason. He has found a way to get it done, and I do believe that Hurts will, at this point, go, I don't care. Like, I got to get that first down. I got to move the chains. I can't fall behind the sticks on first and second down. I'm just going to run. And so that is a great point there when you talk about Jalen Hurts going, I'm going to start running.
Yeah, and Jeff, I also get that over 6.5 rush attempts. First of all, I feel there's so many outs for me to win that. Think about this, Jeff. It could be the end of the first half. The Eagles are at their own 8-yard line, and it's 1st and 10 with 21 seconds left. I can get a cheap run there on a kneel down. The tush push, I can get 5 tush pushes and get it. At the end of the game, if the Eagles are winning like we think they are, they can take 3 knees and get 3 rush attempts. I like the rush attempts better than I like the yards because I think there's so many ways I can get lucky wins as opposed to the rushing yards. That, I'm actually going to need to get rushing yards. But I could get just garbage attempts that are just kind of fortunate breaks, so to speak. But again, what you said, Jeff, I agree with everything you said. So we'll see how it plays out. And I like, by the way, for the 49ers, I like Jennings I don't expect Pearsall to play. I think Jennings is their best receiver. 3.5 catches, 44.5 yards. I think both are too low, especially the catches. I think they need him. I think he's their best receiver. I think he gets his 4 catches.
All right, so let's run down some of Brad's best bets. Starting with today, you have the Rams and the Panthers, and then the Packers and Bears this evening at 8 o'clock. Let's start with those wild card games today. What are some of your best bets if you can run through this wild card weekend?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jeff, I bet the Rams laying 9.5. It's up to 10.5. But again, I think this game personally is a mismatch, Jeff. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Carolina. If this game's a clean game, when I say clean game, Jeff, I mean no fluky turnovers. Matt Stafford last game against them had balls deflected inside the 5-yard line that were picked off. You know,
that's a big. I mean, if you look at that one, that's huge. I mean, it's 10.5. Like when do you see that in the playoffs?
But I think it's merited, Jeff. I think it's merited. I do. I think they're going to score in the 30s, and I dare Carolina to score in the 20s. We'll see how it plays out. And in the Packers game, lean over here. Actually, it's funny. First I was looking at the under, but then the more I really delved into it, since the Packers have lost Micah Parsons, their defense has really gone by the wayside. And to me, I think this Packers team, with Jordan Love there now, I think the receivers are decent. Jacob says it's as healthy as he's been. And the Bears, despite a bad defense, look, they actually do have, I don't know what he's going to play, but they actually do have Roma Dunze. They have Burton. They have Loveland. They have all their cast of characters. I think both teams are going to get in the 20s. I'm playing over the 44.5.
Let's look at tomorrow. I mean, obviously, we talked about the Eagles. We talked about the 49ers. There's the Bills at Jaguars game. That's really intriguing to me because I look at the Bills as, you know, they are a Super Bowl team, in my opinion, coming out of the AFC that everyone's, I feel like, sleeping on. And I'm not buying the Jaguars. I'm not buying the Patriots. I'm not buying the Texans. And so run me through tomorrow with some of the other games.
Well, Jeff, listen, it's interesting because, like, I obviously, you obviously know what you're talking. You're a smart guy, but
I'm not. No.
In terms of the Bills, I think you are. So I think you are. But in terms of the Bills, Jeff, you know, it's interesting. I think a lot of people think, okay, no Mahomes, no Lamar, no Joe Burrow. This is Josh Allen's chance to do it. But to me, one of the reasons I used to like Bill Coyne as a general manager, if you remember Bill Coyne, the Colts GM, he had the best player in the league, or second best player in the league, whatever you say, but Peyton Manning. And what did he do, Jeff? He put every great player around him: Marvin Harrison, Edger and James, Dallas Clark, Marvin Harrison, and he put perfect players around him to make him thrive. I think their general managers are the exact opposite. Josh, put on the cape, get it done. I don't want to hear any excuses. Yeah, you have no good players around besides running back. I don't care. Just get it done. And he has. But to me, I think the Jaguars are better. They've won the last 9 games by an average of 22 points a game. I think the Jaguars are going to win. I think the wrong side's favored. Texans Steelers. Jeff, I think the Texans are for real. I think they beat the Steelers. That being said, I know Tomlin always does in these games. He wins every game he's supposed to lose. So I get it, but I think the Texans are the better team, and I think they advance. I bet the Texans win 2.5.
Man, that Steelers-Ravens finish was unbelievable. And to think, okay, it likely cost Harbaugh his job, it seems insane. But that Steelers-Ravens finish was unbelievable on Sunday Night Football last week. But I like Aaron Rodgers, and I like this story, and I like Mike Tomlin, and everyone wants to throw Tomlin out of Pittsburgh, and I'm like, are you guys kidding me?
No, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
He's a Hall of Fame coach. All right, and give me one favorite prop bet coming from the Eagles. What's your favorite prop bet coming from the Eagles as we close out this conversation with Brad Feinberg?
In that game, I told you, in that game, my favorite too, Jeff, I told you, I love the Jalen Hurts rushing yards. That is what I'm focusing on.
What about Saquon, though? No Saquon?
No, I just don't trust. It's funny, Jeff. No, listen. He's such a great player, but he just hasn't had those magical runs like he had last year. And for me, personally, I mean the number's high, Jeff. The number is high. You're looking at. Let me bring it up. I know I think it's like. It is 84.5. I mean, I mean, if anything, I'm leaning under. If anything. But I'm not gonna touch that personally. And I told you from the 49ers point of view, but in that same game, I think Jennings is their best receiver. I think Jennings will be involved. he's the guy I like for the 49ers.
All right, Brad Feinberg, our pro sports betting analyst here on Bet Park Saturday. He's a great follow on X at Brad's Best Bets. Brad, we appreciate you joining us. Great insight about who to pick, who not to pick, what you like for today, and of course tomorrow when the Eagles play the 49ers.
Jeff, thank you so much. Good luck to everyone out there.
All right, that is Brad Feinberg. Always great to talk to Brad here at Parks Casino in Ben Salem. Jeff Skversky with Andrew Frazier taking you up to 2 o'clock today from Parks Casino in Ben Salem. Let's bring in Marcus Hayes, the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist. Has done a great job writing about the Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers for years. Great takes, great opinions, great insight to what's going on behind the curtains with this football team, with the basketball team, Phillies, you name it. Marcus, how's it going today?
Great, Jeff. How you doing?
Great to see you, Marcus. So let's get right to the Eagles and 49ers game. Obviously, it has been hard to watch the offense this season. What is your biggest concern with this Eagles football team going into the playoffs here?
Fatigue. I think they've played 37 games over the last 2 seasons. That's more than any other team. They're going to have to, play 4 more if they want to get to where they're going. I thought it was a silly discussion, debate last week, whether to rest players and keep them healthy versus, maybe winning a game that gets you maybe gets you 2 home games. This is it's a war of attrition. Football's the last sport, hockey to a degree, but football's the last sport where accumulated fatigue, especially over multiple postseasons, really does matter because you can't load manage football players the way you can baseball and basketball players. So fatigue, is the biggest issue for me for the Eagles. They've played a lot of games, and I think that's one of the reasons you've seen subpar years from A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley in particular.
Yeah, and you talk about Jalen Hurts, and I talked to Sal Paolantonio earlier this morning about this as well. And look, Jalen Hurts, he keeps things close to the vest. I thought it's been interesting this year, 5, 6, 7 times this year, including this week. He did point out again about having all the different offensive coordinators, all the different play callers, and I don't know necessarily he's pointing the finger at Kevin Patullo, but he's saying the change has kind of been a challenge. And I do wonder just how exhausting it has been, even for someone at his caliber, that it's just been a challenge. And it feels like maybe that, he's, just feels like things are spinning, where it's just so much information, where it's just almost overload when you've played that much football and you've gone that deep into the playoffs, last year. Do you think at all it's just mentally wearing on Jalen Hurts, just the change? And I know we're deep into the season and we shouldn't be using that as an excuse, but is that a reality, do you think, by any chance?
No, I think it's ridiculous. The biggest change Jalen Hurts underwent probably since he was a college quarterback was Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, integrated 95% new offense and they won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Most of that offense remains. The change from Kellen Moore to Kevin Patullo was nothing like the change from Ryan Johnson to Kellen Moore. So, and you have almost all the same elements except your right guard. So I didn't really see it. I didn't really hear it the way that you heard it, maybe. But if that's a contention that, one more change has made it that much more difficult, not only does it not really hold water for 2 reasons. Number one, the offense didn't change that much because they promoted from within, and the year before was the greater change, but also because he's shown the ability to adapt to change before. So there's really, I don't buy that argument. I'm not sure. I just thought he was kind of expressing disappointment with the scheme in general, especially the narrative that he likes least this year, Jalen. The narrative Jalen likes least this year is he's asked to run less. He asked the coaches to run him less. He has been very pointed in most of these instances where he talks about the scheme and saying, I'm running as much as they want me to.
Yeah, he talked about it this week. He said that, I'm running, Kevin Patullo calls the plays, kind of like what he's dialing up. And so I thought that was interesting. And, I would think that now where it's do or die, that he's just going to take off when he needs to take off.
Or he's being honest and saying, They scripted this season for me to diminish the runs. I think he's at like 100 versus 150, which was his average the first 4 years as a starter. And this was designed. Like there are going to be more designed runs in the postseason because they designed it that way. They wanted to keep him fresher for the postseason and healthier, because when they have given him the option to run, the run pass options and this called runs, is when he's gotten hurt. So he's healthy. Maybe it worked. They're in a good spot. We'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I just found it so interesting, and just trying to think about it here, and I've been thinking about it for weeks, that he has said on various occasions, like I said, a handful of times, easy, that it has been a challenge this year with all the different play callers and all the different change there. And so I just thought that was just so interesting that he has talked about that this year. So you wrote an article this week about Zach Bond has been the best and most valuable player on the two best Eagles rosters in history. Why? Because he trains like Steph Curry. Can you take us inside that story and just shine a light on Zach Bond? And obviously it's an amazing story, him coming over here and doing what he's done.
Sure. So we'll talk about the premise. You can argue the premise that maybe he's not the best player or the most valuable player. From my perspective, the best player is the player that plays the most, the best. Now, Zach Bond has been as good as any linebacker in the NFL the last 2 seasons. The All-Pro came out today. He's not an All-Pro for a second year, but he's a first-string, he's a starting Pro Bowl player for the second straight year. That's the first time that's happened since Jeremiah Trotter, which is irrelevant compared to this year's team with A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts and Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. But one of the big differences between Zach and all the rest of them is that not only has he played every single game he's been asked to play, he hardly ever has a bad snap, much less a bad game. So he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He makes a lot of plays. So for my money, despite his lack of pedigree, he's been the best Eagle, which is saying something. You talk about a Super Bowl team with Hall of Fame players on it. So that's part one. Part two, the biggest question about Zach Bond coming from New Orleans was he was a special teams player who was kind of an edge rusher, kind of a velociraptor hybrid kind of guy. And they thought he was going to be a sack guy more than anything else. So when he came to Philadelphia, Vic Fangio and Howie Roseman said, hey, we think he can play inside and we think he can cover. Let's see. So he turned out to be the best coverage linebacker in the league the last 2 years. And that's really saying something for a guy who's the question was, can he cover? Now, the best in the league is qualified by what we get in the public from Pro Football Focus. There might be linebacker gurus out there who dispute that, but he's been spectacular and way better than they thought. So those are the two reasons why I thought that he was not only the best player on the team, but certainly one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker in the league. How did he get there? The coaches, Nick Sirianni makes his assistant coaches available to position players after every practice if they want extra work. Nick's a huge basketball player. His niece is as a 7th grader last year outside of Buffalo, was the MVP of the varsity league that she played in. It's a big
Marcus, that's digging deep. How do you know that? That is digging real. I'm impressed.
And she's averaging 15 a game this year.
Wow.
She's having a great career. But Nick's a huge basketball nerd, so he had a basketball coach come in and talk to the players, as a lot of coaches have. A lot of coaches come in from different walks of life. And the basketball coach said, one of the reasons Steph Curry is so great is because after every regular season practice, every off-season practice, he takes 500 extra shots. After every single in-season practice, he takes 200 to 500 extra shots. So they call this 500 shots. Zach Bond takes 500 shots after every practice. Which means he works on his footwork, he works on his positioning, he's out in the field in the rain, in the snow, in the heat, working on becoming a better linebacker, 500 shots. So that's how he got as good as he got, as quickly as he's gotten, and that's why he continues to improve.
I'm really impressed that you know what Nick Sirianni's niece is doing in suburban Buffalo. That's remarkable. But when you talk about the Eagles, I don't think people realize just how much work goes into becoming a professional athlete, and not only being an athlete, but being a great athlete and excelling, and all the work that goes on behind the scenes. And, you know, Zach Bond, you're right. I mean, he doesn't have, like, the physical attributes, I believe, like a Jalen Carter, but what he has done with his body of work, coming kind of like a no-name guy from New Orleans to coming to Philadelphia, you see that work behind the scenes that you're highlighting there, I think is remarkable. But it caught my attention because I said, okay, Zach Bond, he's a really good player, really nice player. You know, he's obviously just come out of nowhere with Philadelphia, but to say that he's the best and most valuable player, it is really interesting to have that point of view.
Well, and you know, let's be honest, he's probably not as talented as Jalen Carter. And, you know, both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are as good at their position.
And they're named all pros today, yeah.
They both made all pro today, but neither did last year, neither was a Pro Bowler, and Zach Bond was. So he's had this 2 years of consistent, recognized excellence on a Super Bowl team. You know, Jalen Carter's been injured. You know, Jordan Davis has had a really good 2025 and a pretty good 2024. There's really, you know, the only guy you can argue, from my perspective, well, two guys I would say, maybe three, are Quinyon, who's been wonderful, but he doesn't get in there, he doesn't make plays on the ball like you'd expect a first-team All-Pro to make. You look at Jordan Mailata, who's kind of had a down year this year at left tackle, and Saquon Barkley, who gained half as many yards this year as he did last year. The difference between those guys and Zach Bond is he doesn't have a bad day.
No, he's been so consistent. When you look at this football team, there's a lot of people that believe they have a championship defense. When you look at this team overall, are they a Super Bowl contender? Do you believe that they can flip the switch and they will make a Super Bowl run here?
You know, I'll qualify it by saying, I'll qualify it this way. Yes, because everybody in the postseason is kind of garbage. You know?
I agree. There's no one scary. Yeah, that's a great point.
Sam Darnold is probably, you know, he's probably the best story in the NFL that nobody harps on after, you know, leaving New York, and I think he might have been in San Francisco or Las Vegas somewhere. He winds up in Minnesota last year and in Seattle this year, and he's the reason those teams are in the playoffs. And Seattle's the #1 seed. It's hard to play in Seattle, but the Eagles can win in Seattle with Sam Darnold at quarterback. And really, probably the toughest game for them, because they haven't shown a capacity to consistently stop the run, is Chicago in Chicago, assuming that's where they are next week. So, or in 2 weeks maybe. So, I don't know. They're not as good as they were last year, mainly because Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, and Lane Johnson, you know, 6% of your offensive line is either currently injured or has been injured, and none of them has been at 100%. The best facet of this team last year and for the last, 12 years, 11 years, something like that, since Chip Kelly took over and brought Jeff Stoutland, is the offensive line. The offensive line isn't as good as it has been. It's better than it has been. It's not as good as it was last year. It's better than it has been in the past. It's kind of a little bit above average compared to itself, but this is the best unit in all of football over the last decade. It's not up to its standard, but we'll see sort of what they are this week, and there's a possibility that they get better and better as the postseason progresses, as Lane gets a little healthier, as Cam gets a little healthier, and as Landon gets a little healthier.
Yeah, and look, we saw them really just get beat pretty badly in that Bills game, really when the starters played last, and, Hurts in that game didn't complete a single pass in the second half, which was ridiculous. But in any event, I want to ask you a few more questions before I let you go. Sixers, they feel as if, at least the last handful of games, they've won 5 of 6. It seems like Joel starting to play better with Paul George, and they're starting to actually play, and obviously seeing what they're doing with Tyrese Maxey, and who's become really the face of the franchise. Are you buying this Sixers team? I'm not. Like, we talked to Dee Lynam a few weeks ago, and she was all about the Sixers, but I'm not buying it. And I still feel like we're in this Groundhog's Day feel with Joel Embiid? Is he playing? Is he not playing? Like, nothing has changed, in my opinion. You just have a different cast of characters around him, other than the emergence of Tyrese Maxey, who I think's been an absolute stud. Are you buying the Sixers that this team can make a run at the NBA Finals, or at least the Eastern Conference, and get out of the second round for a change?
Yes, because the Eastern Conference is, like the NFL, kind of garbage. You know, the Celtics are without.
How do you really feel, Marcus?
Well, you know, I've written this. The Celtics are without their best player in Jason Tatum. The Pacers don't have Tyrese Halliburton. They had an epically, a historically bad start. I'm not a big believer in any of the teams except maybe Cleveland, who I think the Sixers play on Monday or Tuesday. So we'll see. So that's kind of a barometer game. Maybe after that game you might change your mind if they have a good showing or win.
I just don't think they can win with Embiid. Like
I can't argue against you. I have been the biggest critic of Embiid's process, of his professionalism, of his character, but he seems to understand now that if he wants to, sort of make it through this contract extension and play with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and have a chance at winning 1 or 2 championships, he has to alter his game. And to his credit, he's altered his game. He's not as ball dominant as he used to be. He understands the limitations of his body now. He can't jump and he can't land, but he's getting better positionally on defense. And I know this is very granular, and I know this is kind of dorky, but these are the things you have to look for in a player who's returning from injury, especially a player who's 30, returning from his probably, 6th or 7th major knee issue. Can he adapt? So I would say cautiously, I'm buying this team this year, considering what's happened over the last 3 weeks. I don't think Joel has missed anything but a back-to-back in the last 3 weeks, which not only is a record for the season, it might be a record for this decade. So, I mean, it's they're playing well. They're playing through Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, which is what they need to do. And I think their identity will continue to evolve to where you see Paul George getting more looks in the fourth quarter than the person you have the greatest concern about, Joel Embiid, who continues to be poor in the fourth quarter. He's never really gotten over that hump. He's like, I think the third worst. He's the third worst player in the last 4 minutes in the NBA, again, because he turns the ball over all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's been a big issue with this team, and I've said since Jimmy Butler, they haven't had this ice-cold killer in the fourth quarter to close out games. And I always have said, who are you going to hand the ball to? If you're in a playoff game or a close game, in the last few seconds, you need one shot. Like Embiid, I feel like he's flopping, he's losing the ball, he's turning it over. And to that point, to that stat that you had there, I agree, and I just don't think they can win with Embiid. But then,
people are going to get mad about this, but Maxey's not that guy either. Maxey doesn't.
I agree. And I agree with you.
He doesn't have the pull-up game. He's a great player, but he's a great player in the flow of the game. Paul George, on the other hand, is Kobe. He's a guy who he has a plan to manipulate you, to give himself space, to get off a shot that has a 50% chance of going in. And he's not Kobe. He's certainly not Kobe prime. But his game is the only game of any of those players where you can say, okay, he has this in his bag if he has his bag tonight.
Well, all right. Speaking of coming up short, the Phillies, it's been painful to watch the last few years in the playoffs. And I don't know about you. I'm a little underwhelmed with some of the moves and some of the non-moves they have made so far in the offseason. Bo Bichette. So the Phillies reportedly are going to meet with Bo Bichette, potential big-time free agent, on Monday. How much of a splash would that be, do you think, to get the Phillies over the hump? I mean, Nick Castellanos is still on the roster. JT Realmuto is still unsigned. They have some decisions to make there. But how much of a splash could Bo Bichette make with the Phillies if they were to figure out a way to get him here? Obviously, there's some issues there with, okay, where is he going to play? Are they going to play short? Are they going to move Trey Turner maybe to second? What would you do there? So I wanted to get your take on the Phillies situation.
Well, I can't imagine, to sort of be tangential for a second. I can't imagine them moving Trey Turner after the best season he's ever had at shortstop. And
so I mean move him like position-wise. I don't mean trading him.
No, moving him from shortstop
to
a different
okay.
position doesn't make sense this year because he did a lot of work last year to become an elite defensive shortstop. And Bo certainly can play third. I think the issue is, do you still have Alec Bohm on your team? Do you move Alec Bohm to first base and move Bryce Harper to right field? If Bryce Harper was amenable to doing that for other free agent additions, would he be amenable to doing that for Bo Bichette? That's sort of a trickle-down thing. I'm not a huge Bo Bichette believer. I like him. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be vastly overpaid. I think he's a complimentary player. You know, I would love to have seen him try to produce with that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the lineup. You know, so I'm not a huge Bo Bichette believer. I think he's a nice player. I like him. He's a good kid. I liked his dad. You know, I like Vladdy's dad. You know, I've covered all these guys. But you're not signing Dante Bichette. You know, so I don't know. I think one of the things that happens in Philadelphia is there's this assumption that we're one piece away. Well, when we were one piece away, quote unquote, when they signed Schwarber and Castellanos, one piece away when they got Trey Turner. They've spent a lot of money on a lot of guys. You know, the reality is, I just don't think you can put all your eggs in this kind of basket and pay like a $50 to $75 million tax on Bo Bichette. You have to believe that Alec Bohm is going to play better. That's the biggest issue. Alec Bohm should be a 25 to 30 home run guy hitting 280 with 110 RBIs in this lineup with all this protection. That has been the issue. That has been the biggest, I guess, miscalculation or misevaluation that Dave Dombrowski has made since he's been here. And that includes some of the free agency signings. You know, Castellanos certainly wasn't great last year, but overall he's been a plus. But the fact that Alec Bohm hasn't blossomed is pretty damning. I think they'd love to get off it. You know, he's a $10 million guy. Bichette gets some of that money. They they trade for a reliever. That's doable. But I don't think Bo Bichette is the player that puts you over the top.
Yeah, and that is a good point, because reportedly he's seeking $300 million. And look, he is a 294 career hitter, Bo Bichette. 311, tying his career high last year. When you look at Alec Bohm, yeah, I mean, look, Bohm hit 287 last year, only 11 homers. And I was talking about this off the air earlier, that Alec Bohm should not be your cleanup hitter, right? Like, I just don't think the lineup is necessarily built the right way at times. And at the end of the day, like, this Phillies team, when you say they're one player away from winning it all and this and that feeling, I do think that is the case. Because at the end of the day, in the playoffs, their biggest players that should be producing just didn't produce. And it's happened over and over again. So a guy like Bo Bichette to come in, to be potentially young energy, a younger guy at 27 in baseball, I feel like is younger, to be in that lineup surrounded by Schwarber and Turner and Harper, have a right-handed bat, could be a good move. But at the same time, you're right, $300 million, not my money, not your money. But I agree that is a lot of money for a Bo Bichette.
Well, and it's not as if they didn't have right-handed bats before. Nick Castellanos and JT Realmuto bat right-handed. They just didn't bat right-handed very well.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that Bo Bichette is going to continue to hit the way that he's hit. I don't know. I'm not sold on him. I think that his price tag would be outrageous. You would have $300 million guys that will be making their most money after the age of 35 in Trey Turner and Bryce Harper. So it just doesn't seem responsible to me. I think the meeting, I think it's on Monday. I believe the meeting is going to be like, Bo, you can win here. We'll give you more money than Toronto, but you can win here. And I don't know that that's going to be enough to sell Bo Bichette. And I don't blame him. I think every player, every coach, every manager, every NIL guy in college or woman should get as much money as they can as soon as they can. Winning is secondary, because you don't make a lot of money taking half of what you could have taken and winning a World Series. Over your lifetime, you're never going to make that up. These are professional athletes. It's their job to maximize their profession the same way it'd be yours or mine. You know, I might not want to move to Kansas, but if the Kansas City Star says we're going to double your salary, be like, Philly, it's been nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's how I ended up in Detroit for about a year and a half. some extra dough.
Detroit's coming, man. I like Detroit.
Not quite Bo Bichette money, but I do understand that analogy. But look, Bo Bichette, I think there was a Toronto steakhouse offering him free filet for life if he goes and stays.
That would be a much better offer if he couldn't afford to buy the steakhouse.
That's a great point. All right, Marcus Hayes, we kept you way too long. Great talk, great insight there about Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and of course, big game tomorrow, Eagles 49ers in the NFC wild card at 4:30 at Lincoln Financial Field. Great seeing you, Marcus. Love reading your stuff. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
All right, Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer does a great job, columnist for decades. Grew up watching Marcus, not to date myself, but love reading his stuff. Great takes, great opinions there. Loved his Zach Bond story this week. And so obviously we talked a lot about the Phillies, and we're going to continue talking about the Phillies in a moment. First, though, there's some big shows hitting Parx Casino. Tickets to see national headliners at the Excite Center at Parx Casino make a great gift. Parx Casino has something for everyone's entertainment taste. Coming up Saturday, January 17th, the Classic Rockers Grand Funk Railroad. Then on January 31st, the Marshall Tucker Band. Jefferson Starship, they will be here as well. And then Saturday, February 7th, Piano Men, Generations, a tribute to Elton John and Billy Joel. Then in February, country artist Brett Young. Then on March 14th, comedian Tracy Morgan. You know him from Saturday Night Live. Hilarious. Tracy Morgan will be here in Bensalem. Then in April, Cheap Trick will be here, followed by Melissa Etheridge, April 18th. May 14th, the Wallflowers have been added to the Excite Center. Tickets, go to parxcasino.com to buy tickets to all of these great shows coming here to Bensalem, Pennsylvania. You must be 21 to gamble. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So some great insight today on the show here at Parx Casino in Bensalem outside the sports book here on a rainy and cold January, the day before the Eagles face the 49ers. Jeff Skversky alongside my producer. And I'll tell you, this Phillies situation is interesting to me because I think about the Phillies and I've been very underwhelmed with what they have done. And they are bringing back... They are bringing back Kyle Schwarber, and I think there's not much else you can do there. You need Kyle Schwarber back, but he didn't perform in the postseason. And you still have a decision to make with JT Realmuto and what's going to happen there. Ranger Suarez is still out there. Nick Castellanos is still on the team. By the way, spring training is 1 month away, and they have not signed JT. They are expected to meet with Bo Bichette, as we talked about with Marcus, on Monday. And that could be a major deal that could have a domino effect on this roster. What would you do with Alec Boehm? Does that change things with JT Realmuto? But what I would tell you is, I think hands down, and this may not be everyone's opinion, but the most underrated move the Phillies have made this offseason came this week. Don Mattingly, Donnie Baseball, the legendary Yankees player, is now the Phillies bench coach. I love this move, and here's why. Because for the first time since Ryan Sandberg, and I know Ryan Sandberg was not a great Phillies manager, but for the first time they have a legendary former superstar baseball player in that dugout that can be a voice of reason, that can understand what these guys are going through. And I'm not saying that the guys don't respect Rob Thompson or Caleb Cotham, their pitching coach, or Kevin Long, the hitting coach. I'm not saying any of that. But when you have a Bryce Harper and a Trey Turner and a Kyle Schwarber and a Zach Wheeler and an Aaron Nola, to know that, man, that is Donnie Baseball. That's the legendary Yankees player that is right there, that we can go pick his brain to go, hey, I struggled too. And Don Mattingly talked about it this week, that hey, I struggled as a player. You see this great legendary Yankees career, but I struggled too, and this game is hard. To have that perspective, I think, is genius. And Mattingly wasn't sure if he wanted to be a coach again this year. It was a very long season for him. He was on the bench with the Toronto Blue Jays that went to the World Series, and I think he had a big impact on that Blue Jays team. I just think the world of this move. And Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski, this is the only guy they were talking to. They really wanted to bring in Don Mattingly. I think it is a brilliant, brilliant move. I think it'll be a difference maker with the hitters, with this team as a whole to get over the hump. I love what the Phillies did with Don Mattingly. I don't think this is underrated at all. And I think this is actually the most underrated move the Phillies have made this offseason happening this week. Here's Don Mattingly and Phillies manager Rob Thompson about the decision to come to the Phillies and be the bench coach.
Talking with Dave and having somebody that, wants you, right, and explain what he thought I could bring to the table and again, be part of, obviously this is a great club to start with. I think 95 or 6 wins last year. So it's going to a good club. It's going to people that, Tomps I've worked with, K Long I've worked with, Edouard, worked with him in Miami. So that was interesting, but it was nice to be wanted. Obviously the Preston factor to be able to work, alongside your son is something that, since this thing started with him working in San Diego, he's been kind of telling me what to do or what we needed to do in Miami and then what we need to do here or there. So I think having that opportunity is interesting to be able to work alongside instead of kind of being able to, like last year, it was like, hey, I hope we play Philly in the World Series, right? So go head to head with him. But now it's nice to be on the same team.
Because Dave and I have been talking about hiring a guy like Donnie with, that type of pedigree. Because as great as our staff is, we don't have that guy that's been a star in the big leagues. Future should be in the Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. And I think when it came to me that there was a possibility that Donnie was going to be available, I said, this is the perfect guy. Because I know him, I know the integrity, I know the knowledge, I know how detailed he is. And plus, I think he's a great sounding board for our players and our stars, because he's been there and he's done all these things. And the rest of us really can't answer to that. So this is a huge deal I'm so excited to have Donnie. I'm so excited. It's just going to be a great addition to our staff.
Is never forget how hard the game is. And I know, guys make a lot of money and we expect them to be, to come through all the time. And it's not that way. So I try to never forget, my past as a player. And people will say to you, well, you never struggled. I'm like, I struggled plenty, right? Everybody struggles. And I think that's what you always bring to the situation, right? So that's what I feel like I bring. It's what I've brought everywhere with me. I'm always going to try to be myself. Any role that I've played as a coach or a hitting coach or manager, I feel like I'm here to help players. I'm here to serve, help them, get the best out of their ability. And it's not about me. It's really about the players. The players are going to direct how we go, right? We're going to try to put them in the best position. Thompson's going to work through it all and listen to the voices that he hears, make a decision, and try to put these guys in the best position. So that's kind of the way I use my past.
I just think we're adding a great voice, a guy that's had a lot of experience doing this, great pedigree, and we're adding a really solid guy to a great coaching staff.
My job is really just to be another set of eyes and ears for Tomps, right? And to be managing along, during the game, try to stay ahead a little bit, stay with him. I know it gets busy and fast at times when you may have to, you're thinking about your pitching and then you got a pinch hit situation and all those things get fast. So really just try to be another set of eyes, try to stay ahead with him and just lighten the load for him.
Well, we can now blame Don for bad decisions in the playoffs. So, I had a list of a bunch of people, former managers, coaches, all that have played in the big leagues and had success in the big leagues, either in the dugout or on the field. But really, Donnie was the guy. I never talked to anybody else because we wanted to find out from Donnie first.
Right, you got to build a relationship first. So you want to get with all the players. That number one, they trust you, you watch, you learn from, I've seen him from afar. I have not seen him from the inside. I've seen Trey from afar, not seen him from the inside. None of the guys outside of Jesus. So you want to build relationships with everybody, listen to them, watch them, and just talk, right? And if there's things that he wants to talk about from first base standpoint, then we can talk about it. And if there's things he thinks about at the plate, hitting a lefty or hitting a righty or certain style of pitcher, for me too, I'm going to be like, hey, what are you trying to do with this guy? Right? What are you trying to do? And what you're thinking, I want to learn too. So I feel like I'm learning all the time, but so those are the type of things you got to build the relationships and go from there. The managing days for me, I'm 64, getting ready to turn 65. I see the energy it takes to deal with the media twice a day, to have the conversation with players. You got the front office dealing with that aspect. It never really stops. I'm assuming Rob's phone's ringing when he's at home during the off season. It never really stops. And I look at myself and say, I don't think I have the energy for that anymore. It took me a little bit to make sure I was ready for this, right? When Dave calls and I think about it, at that point, I'm exhausted from the season. It took a little bit to go, okay, I can do this, right? I'm ready to do it again. And but the man side for me, I feel like those days have passed me by. And so I don't have any aspirations to manage again.
All right, so Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly is their bench coach now for the Philadelphia Phillies. I think, again, it is a brilliant move. I think it is the most underrated move the Phillies have made this offseason. I know that may sound crazy coming from a guy that's on the bench, but I just think his presence and the fact that he can just have those conversations with Bryce and with Trey and with Kyle and whomever, that's going to come in handy, especially as this team needs to make another deep playoff run and finally win a World Series with this group. All right, speaking of teams coming up short, the Sixers, we talked about it a little bit with Marcus Hayes a few moments ago, but the Sixers, are you buying this team? They've won 5 of 6. I'm not buying it with the Joel Embiid situation. I just still think at the end of the day, this guy cannot stay healthy. We've been over it and over and over. What I am buying, though, is their rookie, VJ Edgecombe. I love this guy. I love the makeup. I love the mentality. I love his drive. I love his determination. His kid is going to be fantastic. Arguably the best player in the draft, in my opinion. And I know we see a lot of him. And I know that Cooper Flag is going to get a lot of the headlines. But look, VJ's been great. And the Sixers are not asking him to do a ton. I mean, it's Maxey and Paul George and obviously Joel Embiid. But this guy, along with Tyrese, are the future faces of this franchise. Edgecombe is tied for the most steals among NBA rookies this season. And he has the most steals per game among rookies. He's great defensively. He's getting better and better with his shot, better and better offensively. And what I love about him is his mentality. And if you don't hear anything else ever from VJ Edgecombe, you need to hear what he said this week, talking about just how confident he is. If you want to know anything about VJ Edgecombe, all you have to hear is this, why this Sixers rookie is going to be great. Listen to VJ Edgecombe.
To be honest, I have the most confidence in the world. Sometimes I might be a little delusional, but I have the most confidence in the world. I swear, I think I can make the shots I see Tyrese be making. So, but me and Rico work on that every day since I got here. All the mechanics, everything. As a kid, I always could have shoot the ball. And then I grew and I wanted to dunk and jump and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, it feels good to knock down shots. I mean, as a basketball player, if people keep running under screens or just letting you shoot wide open shots, it's going to kill your confidence. You don't want to play anymore. Especially me at 6'4", 6'5". That won't help me at all in any way. So being able to shoot the ball is a big key, especially in today's game. I'm not 7 foot. I'm not 7 foot athletic, run and dunk the whole time. No, I can't do that. I'm not 7 foot. But, I got to add aspects to my game because I know I want to be the best. I want to be the best, and the best can shoot. They can do everything on the floor. So, yeah, I want to be the best. So that's why I work so hard.
I love that. VJ Edgecombe, the Sixers rookie, he wants to be the best. He may sound delusional, but he has all the confidence in the world. I don't think it sounds delusional at all. Like, I want to hear that, and I don't feel like we've heard that from the other guys. I don't think we've even heard that from Joel Embiid, right? Like, we certainly didn't feel that way from Ben Simmons and Jahlil Okafor and all these other guys, Markelle Fultz. This guy has it. Just like Tyrese Maxey has it, the work ethic, the drive. I mean, these guys were working out super early in the morning. These guys have the it factor, and I think the franchise, in a weird way, through everything they have been through over this whole situation, tanking and the process and blah, 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 these two guys, I believe they have found a way to retool this franchise, and they're the future right there. That this tandem is going to be something special long after Joel Embiid is here, long after, of course, Paul George as well. All right, so Eagles, 49ers, wild card weekend tomorrow. The Birds, can they win 4 more games and win back-to-back Super Bowls? They're trying to become just the 10th team in NFL history. Let me rephrase that. Only 10 teams. No, that's correct. They are trying to become the 10th team to repeat as Super Bowl champions. The Eagles, the 3 seed in the NFC. It should be a great one tomorrow as the Eagles won back-to-back division titles for the 2nd consecutive seasons. This has been a great run. 11 games they have won for the 4th consecutive season. The Eagles are going to blow out the 49ers. They are 6-point favorites. I think this game is going to be an easy win for the Birds, and they're going to go rolling in the divisional round. I believe this team can make a Super Bowl run. Is it going to be ugly? Is it going to be pretty? I think it may be sloppy. Do you care? You don't care. It doesn't matter. I think there's going to be another parade down Broad Street with this Eagles football team. Let's hope so. Eagles, 49ers, wild card weekend. Birds 6-point favorites against the 49ers. And that'll do it for us today here at Bet Parks Saturday from Parks Casino in Ben Salem at the Sportsbook, live on the PHLY Sports YouTube page. Alongside Andrew Frazier, I'm Jeff Skaversky. A special thank you to all of our guests, from Sal Paolantonio to Marcus Hayes to Brad Feinberg. Some great conversations with those guys and some great insight as we get set for the Eagles and 49ers Sunday at 4:30 at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm Jeff Skaversky. Have a great Saturday.